RoboFest.
What's it called?
RoboFest.
RoboFest.
Mm-hmm. I'll be there tomorrow morning. It's from 8 o'clock to 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock.
Can we announce that at the...
Sure.
Jay, do you want any announcements during the show?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so just ask me about robotics and I'll
Welcome to Think Tech Fridays. We're raising public awareness about technology, science, energy, globalism, and diversification. I'm your host, Attila Seress. Joining me here today is Song Choi. He is the Assistant Dean at the College of Engineering at Manoa. And we're here to talk today about the prosthetic possibilities after the Boston bombing. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Now, for our listeners, our show is being streamed live on ustream.tv, that's the letter U, STREAM.tv, and Spreaker.com. That's just like speaker with an R in there, so SPREAKER.com. And these links are embedded on our website, so to get these live streams, just go to thinktechhawaii.com. If you want to join the conversation, call us at any time. Our number is 296-5467. That's 296-5467. And of course, if you want to join us live in our downtown studio, call Jay Fidel at j@fidel.com, Fidell. Well, let's talk a little bit about what happened here in Boston. And I think we've all been informed about all the terrible side of what came out of that event.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're here to talk about the next phase, which is the recovery phase, and the kind of things that some of the victims may be able to have access to that they may not have had access to before. Now, your background, of course, is in robotics, as being the assistant dean at the College of Engineering. I'm guessing you're also good at math. And
Prerequisite.
You may know a little bit more than the average person about this stuff. And what we really wanted to focus in on is what kind of things that our listeners might not have known about that may be available to these victims who may have lost limbs, have had internal organ damage. And maybe we could start by talking a little bit about your background in robotics
Sure.
and how that relates to the human body.
Okay. My background is mechanical engineering. I went to a school called Worcester Polytech in Massachusetts. And then I went to a school called Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I came back to the University of Hawaii in Honolulu to complete my PhD. And my background, if you were to look at it, is controls and dynamics. So I'm interested in the motions of mechanisms and how to control these mechanisms so they are very stable. So let's say, we look at a plane. A plane that is on autopilot is really nothing more than a robot that is getting information from sensors, feeding out information to the actuators, so the jets, and it's maintaining a height and speed, everything you want. So the pilots are there and they can probably enjoy everything that they want to do, as long as they can jump in and take care of any emergencies that may not be part of the autopilot program. Okay, so robotics, in a sense, is really a development of a tool. So a robot is a tool. So if we make a robot that goes into hazardous areas, so let's say there's a chemical fire, and obviously we would have a hard time going in because we would have to put on suits and probably have oxygen and all this stuff, whereas we could probably drive a robot right into it and have it do the search and rescue type mechanism, and it can come back out, and all you gotta do is clean it back off and ready to go again. Very simple.
That's why we have robots on Mars. I mean, and
That's right.
all these other remote places.
That's right.
The bottom of the ocean.
That's right.
Same reason.
The bottom of the ocean is one, and the reason I came back was because that's where my interest was. My interest was in making robots for the undersea environment. So.
And the surf is
natural
good
fit.
too.
Surf is always good. Surf is always good.
Probably not going to get that much on the East Coast, but
Well, East Coast has very cold surf, right?
yes, very cold surf, especially now. But
Yeah.
And so how how would these new advances in robots help us if we've been injured somehow, or if we have someone who's come back from the war who's lost the ability to do something?
That's right.
What can we do?
Well, I mean, if you think about any type of war situation or terror situation like we just went through, it's one thing, and it's extremely sad. People get injured and pass away. But for the people that get injured, though, we need to figure out how we can get them back onto a normalcy of life. So how to normalize what they were doing and what they're missing now. We can look back and say, hey, $6 Million Man, Jamie Summers, The Bionic Woman, and they were all TV shows back in the 80s and 90s. But those things are real now.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. What we see in Iron Man as an external suit that can make you 10 times stronger. What we see as like Terminator, where these things are moving around, and they're cyborgs, right? But a cyborg is just an advancement of what I was just talking about, autopilot. It's understanding and thinking and making decisions on inputs that it has. So let's say a prosthetic. Prosthetic is something that can just help you out to replace something you're missing, like your hand.
Like your arm,
Yeah,
or your foot.
or your arm, right? And of course, we all remember Peter Pan and Captain Hook.
Okay.
And the reason why they were called Captain Hook, because you lose a hand, they put in a hook, and you become the bad guy, right?
I guess so.
Okay.
But why a hook versus, I don't know, a ball?
Well, ball has extremely limited uses, whereas a hook, because of the sharpness to it, you can pick up things, you can grab and drag things.
Oh, so you can eat.
That you can actually eat, right?
Oh, okay.
So there are reasons why certain prosthetics were invented. I'm sure if you go way back, prosthetics could be as simple as a simple stick that's pointed that you can use as a weapon, right? Many, many different things. Oh, here's another one. Remember all the pirates and the stereotype that pirates have a peg leg? Prosthetic, right? They just needed to make sure that there was support so they can keep balance and stand up. So those are ancient. And of course, this Iraq war, or the Middle East war that we've been going through for the last 20 years, has had a huge impact on, I think, how wars are done. A lot of people understand that there are these predator things and these,
the drones.
yeah,
right?
the drones, where really the military or human life is not really involved even in the war mechanism. But the people that do get injured, and they come back, like you said, missing limbs, missing hands, damaged internal organs. We need to figure out how to help them out. And technology, engineering has advanced far enough where we can miniaturize a lot of things. So you look in the internet and you look up dancing robots, and you see these Sony robots and Honda robots.
Right, the Aibo.
Yeah, that's right.
The dogs.
And the motions that you see on those guys are so fluid now. They don't have that jerkiness that we're used to when we remember seeing them back in the 80s and 90s and even early 2000s.
Well, you know what's funny is that reminds me. I mean, we went to Disneyland a few years back, and I remember growing up. I'd gone to Disneyland, and I'd seen those little robots, the pirates kind of moving like this. And then the Pirates of the Caribbean movie came out, and they kept the old robots kind of doing their little tiny motions, but then they had this gorgeous fluid motion Johnny Depp type character.
Right.
So it's come a long way. Now, I remember seeing a documentary about how they made the animation in Jurassic Park and how they learned that once they constructed the dinosaur bones, they were able to figure out how the dinosaurs actually moved in this computer-generated environment. I'm guessing that as we create robots that are more and more advanced, we learn a little bit more about how we can integrate them into ourselves, right?
That's right. That's right. So, this whole process of development that we see is something we don't think about. Instinctively, we learn how to walk, we learn how to taste things, we learn how to make sure to stay away from things like fire. I don't know if it's ingrained, I don't know, but instinctively we do these things. And instinctively, we learn how to keep balance when we're walking. Remember, a robot has none of these things. So teaching a robot is teaching something that's even beyond infant. So that is nothing. We're talking pure blank slate, okay? But you teach these things by mathematical algorithms and the theories of physics, and you can ask them to how to move around with their center of balance, about their center of mass, how to shift your weight around as you walk upstairs because you're pivoting on one foot every time. And if you keep advancing along these lines, you can make robots that run 60 miles an hour, 100 miles an hour.
Well, but going back to our prosthetic idea, we have this advantage in that we have this brain, right? But we're missing this leg or this arm. So how do we use all that knowledge that we've gained in our head to actually move our arm or move our leg in such a way that we don't fall over, like you said, going up and downstairs?
Well, like I said, a lot of it's instinctive. We understand how to keep balance. If we lost a leg and I had a peg leg, that's very different than having feet and trying to balance on these little muscles that we don't know about and the little bones. But we learned that, hey, if there's a peg, we can always balance ourselves out. It's like if we hurt our leg and we need to use crutches, we somehow instinctively know that if we use a crutch, we can get around. So same thing. I think that all that experiential knowledge is stored in yourself and you learn how to use them. Obviously, as we learn more and more about our physiology, how our nervous systems work, how our brain waves work, we can come to a point where we're now literally where we're controlling automated arms that are used as replacement prosthetics by your muscle twitching motions or your nerve system understanding.
Yeah, I remember seeing that in Star Wars when, when he got his hand cut off. It kind of went in here and it was tied into all the nerves. And I remember before the show we were talking about how it can tie directly into your muscles. How does that work? Well, you know what? We're going to talk about that after the break. Stay tuned. This is Attila Seress with Think Tech Friday, and we're talking here with Song Choi about prosthetic possibilities after the Boston bombing. Stay tuned.
760 KGU.
Part of the Wall Street Business Network.
Kalakaua is closed in Waikiki between Lures and Royal Hawaiian Avenue. Police are investigating a suspicious package found at the Royal Hawaiian Shopping Center. As a result of that closure, Ala Moana, Kalakaua, and Macaulay are all backed up and very slow heading into Waikiki. If you're going west from town, it's also very slow. The Moana Lua backed up to the Fort Shafter overpass. The H1 already backed up to the airport exit on the viaduct.
For the new leaf, and then
Think Tech Hawaii is a Hawaii nonprofit corporation organized in the year 2000. Its purpose is to raise public awareness about the importance of technology, energy, agriculture, and globalism to the diversification and expansion of our economy. We do this by television shows on community television and on OC16, by newspaper articles, and by our Think Tech radio series on KGU 760 AM. We also do it by panel programs and events, including our monthly luncheon programs with the Hawaii Venture Capital Association.
I know two people that
Think Tech,
he
working
was
to
in
raise
Manoa. He
public
was a white
awareness
one.
in Hawaii. Check us out at
May have been Hank
thinktechhawaii.com.
Rogers. from Blue Planet?
No.
It wasn't him?
No, but I've seen his. His
Think
is
Tech
parked over
Radio
here
is
in,
also
Harvard
brought to you
Court.
by
Hank
InmoB.
has
Since its
a,
inception in
white-
2007,
Oh,
InmoB
And then
has
the other
grown
one
to
is
become the
my
world's
D
largest
has it.
independent
He has a
mobile
gray one.
advertising network, serving
Could've
over
been-
100 billion
No,
mobile
it was
ads to
definitely
date.
white.
It has built its product in parts
it
of the
was white.
world where
Yeah,
the
I thought
mobile
Hank had a
phone
white
is
one.
not just a screen, it's the
His
only screen.
Tesla S.
After launching in the
Yeah,
the big
US
one.
and Europe
Doesn't
in
have Blue
2010,
Planet on the side.
InmoB has
Yeah.
more than doubled
The
its
little
global
car,
network
that old
from
Tesla
7 billion to
Roadster.
60
Right.
billion
He actually
impressions
says
monthly,
Blue Planet.
and has offices
Wow.
on 4 continents, in
That's such a
Bangalore,
cool
Johannesburg,
And that was
and
red.
London, in Nairobi, New York,
Red
and
one. Okay,
Paris,
we'll look
in
for
San
red.
Francisco,
It
Seoul,
looks like a Lotus.
Singapore, and
Yeah.
Tokyo.
So you can easily
InmoB.
mistake it.
So if you want to see it, they're both at the Hokua apartments.
Oh,
'Cause that's where
neat.
they live. Yeah.
We're back. We're live. You're listening to Think Tech Friday. I'm your host, Attila Seress, and we're here talking with Song Choi about prosthetic possibilities after the Boston bombing. When we last left the conversation, we were talking about how your muscle pulses, that even though they don't originate in that same part of your body, can actually influence things like your hand and other parts of your foot. But before we get back to that conversation, I believe you had an announcement about Robot Fest.
Oh,
What's
yes.
that?
Saturday morning, so tomorrow,
Tomorrow.
at 8 a.m. to about 1 or 2 p.m. in the afternoon at UH West Oahu. This is the new campus they have, right?
Far away.
Yeah, far away.
Hey, no traffic though. There you go.
Should be no traffic Saturday morning. There is a competition called RoboFest, and it's similar to the first robotics competition, the VEX competition, the Bot Ball competition. All these competitions that take place in our state, and it's a lot of kids, middle school, high school kids, getting together for very simple competitions and some presentations. So if you don't have anything to do tomorrow morning, come on out.
Now I know with these different challenges that they give forth, they have sort of like guidelines. Like we were talking earlier about the competition, they give them a box of parts and they say figure it out. What's going to happen at RoboFest tomorrow?
RoboFest is a little bit different. So the first robotics competition has a box of parts that creates a robot about, I don't know, 3 feet by 3 feet by 3 feet, relatively big. And this year it was shooting out frisbees and stuff. Very, very clean competition.
No mangoes.
Yeah, no mangoes.
That would be a messy one.
Yeah, the VEX competition had this thing where they were picking up sacks and trying to put it on.
Really?
Trophus. And I believe the first Lego League had a competition, something about like environmental food type stuff, where they were doing fishing stuff and all that. They all have causes, and they all have a specific set of parts. RoboFest does not require that you have a specific set of parts. You can use a VEX kit, a first Lego League kit, whatever you can get your hands on. And their competitions, and I'm sorry to say, I don't know what their competition this year is, but their competition is also on environmental and health related, some current technical cause that needs to be addressed.
And they all kind of get together and see how well they can do it. It's interesting you mentioned that, because I heard on the radio, this was maybe a few months back, where they were trying to take robots and replace human manual labor type jobs with them, such as moving a sack of potatoes from point A to point B, or picking strawberries, or picking fruits. I think that's really cool.
And that's right down the lines of what a robot is. Robot, if you look at the definition, is some form of a mechanism that can do mundane tasks over and over and over again, with no coffee breaks, with no sleep, with no vacation time, right?
And that's true. In fact, in the computer world, they're called bots, robots, and bots go out and they scour the internet.
That's
and
right.
They make Google better.
That's right.
I don't even know what this is doing here. They make Google better. They do all these other things. And the whole point is that you're right, they make mundane tasks a little bit better. Now, I'm guessing then the consequence is that we have a better quality of life, right?
Well, quality is a perception, right?
Right.
Let's say we have more time to search for a better quality of life. So if I don't have to spend 10 hours putting something together because I have a robot that can do it for me, that means I can spend that 10 hours doing something much more productive, much more for the human race. You know, if that's quality, yes, that's what we want. So, but we do have time. We gain time, and I think that's where the important point is. It is also good for us economically. So if you think back, you know, cars in the 60s, 70s were relatively cheap. If we look at the straight out direct price, $4,000, $5,000 for like a Mustang, right? Now we look at that same Mustang and it's like $24,000. But interestingly, if you look at the inflation that's taken place in the last 50 years or 60 years, the basic price of a car, $4,000 versus like $24,000 or $30,000, is no different. With the inflation, it's about the same cost. And to me, that seems a little odd when cost of labor has really skyrocketed, right? But with these robots that can create cars 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks, your cars have to cost less, and they have less errors because obviously
it's more precise.
Yeah, it's more precise. I remember this from my father back in the 70s. He used to say, "Don't buy a car built on a Monday, and don't buy a car built on a Friday."
Like you'd ever know.
Well, they said they did a Friday car because people are so eager to get with their own weekend. They would forget to tighten all the screws or forget to even put in a screw, so your cars actually broke faster. And a cars that you bought on Monday, nobody wants to go to work on Monday anyway, right? So these guys half-assedly did their work. So a car that was built on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday were supposed to outlast the other cars.
So what could you then say that the manufacturer of the best quality automobile is the one that's going to have the best robots for the job?
In a sense, yes. The manufacturing part is where the robot becomes an efficient tool. You still have to remember the design and the analysis part is something that is being done by human beings. So it's a combination of design, analysis, and fabrication and manufacturing. But the manufacturing part, now being done by a lot of machines, makes it more affordable, and many of those are coming out with higher quality.
So our American auto industry is on its way to recovery because of robots.
It's doing very well.
And speaking of the mainland, let's jump back to that Boston bombing, terrible thing, and the kind of we saw a lot of pictures right afterwards, after the event, and a lot of people lost limbs, and I guess it's safe to say that something like this gets our attention in terms of what we can do to help them. And about prosthetics, let's say that someone loses an arm, which is sad. But what choices do they have? What can they do?
Well, like we were talking about earlier, we are in the $6 million man era. You can get hands that literally move like our hands.
Really?
Multiple joints, multiple actuators that can move different joints.
That would make you a great boxer.
Yeah, it can make you a great boxer. It'll make you an extremely efficient person because you can do things. Okay, and of course, robot technology development has been slow at times, but as the miniaturization of computer parts, actuators, sensors, we become more and more inclined to using a lot more and understanding a lot more. It used to be that we could not grab an egg or a ping pong ball with the robot arm because the lack of sensors, that it would just crush it. Now we have robots that can sit there and juggle eggs, and
whoa,
it can do things you would not have imagined. And this is all possible because, as we were talking about before, we have to be concerned about how you can control that robot arm. For instance, let's say I'm missing a arm. And so I put a robotic arm on my right side, which means, okay, yeah, joystick, I can use my left hand to control my right hand. What have you gained? Nothing.
Nothing, right?
Because you went with one hand and you're still using one hand. Maybe a little bit stronger, but you still have one hand. what we're doing right now is, very simple test. If you put your arm out and move your fingers around.
Okay, so this is our test for our listeners. So you put your arm out, just straight ahead of you.
Straight ahead.
Okay.
And put your other arm, whether it's your right or left arm, and put it under your shoulder in that armpit area.
Okay.
And you move your fingers around, and you can feel muscle motion, because your whole body is pretty much one unit, and it's all connected, right? And everything moves in combination with another. So if I had an arm and I lost it, I would obviously know how to move my fingers, even if it's not there. So if I put a replacement arm in, and I put sensors in my shoulder area and my armpit area, and it's reading muscle pulses, I could probably move my artificial hand in a very similar manner. Which means now I actually have a regular hand, and I have a robotic hand that can work in unison with my other hand.
Now, can it work even better? Like, for example, could you say, I don't know, juggle an egg, and then the voice command makes your hand do whatever you need it to do?
Oh,
so that repetitive motion. So it doesn't actually even depend on your...
But why do you need voice command when you're actually emulating the same motion you had when you had an arm? So everything is now natural. You don't have to give it a command. It's not like going into a computer and saying, yeah, I'm going to do a Google search on something. It just does it because it's intuitive, it's instinctive, you've done it before. And if you can do it that way, you can of course think about the other possibilities, that maybe you can go beyond muscle pulse readings. You could do nerve readings. The nervous system in the body is very similar to wire layouts in a building, and it's carrying some sort of a little charge.
So you have like a central point, which I'm guessing is your brain, and then it branches out from there through your nervous system.
That's right. So the way your spine and everything works is that everything starts in your central unit up here in your head, and it goes all down your bunch of wires in your back, and it's protected by the spine, and it branches out from each one to go and control the muscles that's associated with your bones, right? So in the same way, that means I can sit here and think about something, and it'll end up moving, just like what we do now, like grabbing fists or pushing pieces of paper around.
Well, but how do you tap into that wiring?
I think two ways. You can have readings. Your nerves, just because it gets cut, does not mean it's dead.
Oh, it's just
it just means it's cut. So if I was to attach something where it can continue the reading and send it out via some sort of another wire, or artificial wire, or maybe even organic type of wire, where we can organically make nervous system type stuff.
Wow.
And there's research on that going around. There's an entrepreneur here in town who was a doctor that started stuff like that with artificial eyes and stuff.
Really?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. And one of the things that people forget is that just because we live in Hawaii, where it's sand, surf, and sand, sun, surf, and sand.
Sun, there you go, yeah.
sun, surf, and sand.
Land of rainbows, yeah.
Doesn't mean we don't get anything done here. In a way, we get more done here. I mean, when I was in the East Coast, especially in the wintertime, if I see a nice day in the wintertime, hey, I was outside playing around, even if it was 32 degrees.
Because that's a warm day.
That is a warm day. Here, if you look outside, it's a nice day, we say, hey, tomorrow will be the same.
Yeah.
And we can do what we have to do and go have fun tomorrow. So there's a lot of technological development that's going on. And I think we need to make people aware of some of those things.
Oh, well, we'll talk a little bit about that when we get back from this short break. This is Attila Seress with Think Tech Friday. Stay tuned.
760 KGU.
Part of the Wall Street Business Network.
HPD is asking motorists to avoid going into Waikiki because of a suspicious package. They have closed Kalakaua between Lures and Royal Hawaiian Avenue, and as a result, it is really slow heading into Waikiki on Kalakaua, Ala Moana Boulevard, and Macaulay. Kapahulu would be your best bet. Traffic going west from town, very slow in both freeways heading to the stadium. No problems going to the windward side, more normal out to Hawaii Kai.
installed solar water heating last year, we would have saved about $600 on our electric bill.
Wow, that's like 40 pounds of poke.
Or 15 bikinis.
Or 800 pounds of rice.
Or 200 pairs of slippers.
Or 750 malasadas.
Well, that's a lot of malasada.
Solar water is the first step towards big energy savings. With Hawaii Energy's limited time rebate, get solar water heating for about $2,000 and reduce your electric bill up to 40%.
That's a lot of malasada.
Visit hawaiienergy.com/solarwater.
With the Kahiava Wind Farm on Maui and the Kahuku and Kawailoa Wind Farms on Oahu, First Wind is pleased to create clean, local sources of energy powered by Hawaii's trade winds. Understanding our unique environment and host culture, First Wind develops projects that support local communities and provide net benefits to native wildlife, embracing the concept of caring from Mauka to Makai. Ukamakani, may the wind blow towards a sustainable future for Hawaii's people. For more information, visit firstwind.com.
Limited in comparison to.
We're back, we're live. You're listening to Think Tech Friday, the show about raising public awareness about technology, energy, globalism, and diversification. We're here with Song Choi, and we're talking about the prosthetic possibilities after the Boston bombing. Until now, we talked a little bit about the history of prosthetics and, just how it can actually physically work inside your body. But before we get back to that conversation, we have an announcement from our founder, Jay Fidel. Are you there?
Yes.
All right.
Of course I am, Attila. I'm always watching you.
I know it. I feel your eyes right here on the back of my head.
So, Attila, I just wanted to have a moment to remind everybody that Think Tech live streams all of his talk shows on the internet. We put streaming video on Ustream and streaming audio on Spreaker. If you want to catch us live, these video and audio streams are available on our website, thinktechhawaii.com. Check them out. Remember, too, that we have a gallery here for a live studio audience in our downtown Think Tech studio. You can come down and be a member of that audience. You can just watch, or you can pose questions to our guests and participate in the discussion. To reserve your place, contact me, jfidel at j@fidel.com. Thanks, you guys. You're having a great conversation. I'm with you all the way on this, and I'm still watching you, Attila.
Okay. You got it. I'll behave. Thank you, Jay. Well, and this third part of the program, we'd like to kind of talk about some of the challenges that maybe people will face when they have to integrate some sort of electronic device into their body. And the first thing that comes to mind for me is money. Is this stuff, you mentioned earlier $6 million man a couple times. Now, I'm not sure if a lot of people have $6 million laying around. What choices do they have?
Well, if you think about it, excuse me, in this day and age, $6 million really is not a lot of money.
No,
And
especially
especially in technology, right?
I have that much in my pocket, right?
There you go. Credit cards are that kind of limit, right?
Sure.
Yeah. These devices are expensive, and you have to understand that many of these devices are still in the research phase. Little by little, it's coming out. A good way to look at that is all the robotic vehicle type stuff that's been going around. The trickle out effect is we have things like parking sensors. We have cars that can automatically parallel park. We have little mechanisms in homes that can vacuum for us.
Great thing,
right?
yeah.
Great thing, right? And
drives the dog's crazy, but you know.
Well, that's okay. Some that's the fun of that, right?
Yeah.
And we see all these things trickling down, and it's the same thing in the prosthetic business, just like the medical business. Okay, you see robots being used for surgery, robot surgery. They have it here at Queen's Hospital, and it allows you to go in the morning and have some sort of surgery, like an appendectomy, and walk out in the afternoon, and within the next couple of days, you're pretty much okay because they have them rip your guts out to get to your appendix. It's just little puka holes, right? So along those ways, those developments take place. As I said, the miniaturization of the electronics, the computers, the motors, it's allowing engineers to come up with designs that are becoming much, much more emulating of human parts.
Well, but I mean, shouldn't then the cost be going down? Like you mentioned with the car industry 40 years ago, the Monday car,
Yeah.
Monday car effect. I mean, that car was $4,000, and now we have this much more sophisticated vehicle that costs the same price.
That's right. What's happening, but you have to remember the robotic technology research is still in its infant stages. So infant stages mean you are investing lots of money to get it started. Similar to the drug industry. Let's say when the HIV and AIDS thing started back in the late 80s. They had certain drugs and very few people, if any, could afford those drugs. Number one, they were experimental and they cost tons of money. Same thing. I think these robot prosthetics right now are expensive because it's still in a research stage. But if you look in the internet, you'll see one or two items coming up. This morning I saw something in the, I forget if it was CNN or BBC or something like that. They had this thing called the iHand.
iHand?
Yeah, and it was basically a prosthetic hand. And I think it's also similar to stuff that Jay was telling us earlier, where they were taking very simple plastic hands to third world countries and giving it to people that lost hands. And all this did was have a very simple clasping mechanism and allowed them to grab things. So eventually, they're going to get to a point where you're going to get a replacement hand if you happen to have lost it in an accident, and maybe it'll read off the nerves and the muscle twitches in your wrist, and it can work just like your hand. It's probably a little bigger and a little bulkier than your current hand.
Well,
but Ben, it sure beats a hook, right?
It sure be, and unfortunately, I have the scene from Game of Thrones from last week's episode kind of repeating in my head here that I'm not going to describe, but if you watch the show, you're probably like, oh, he's got a hook in his future. Or,
there you go.
It's gone now, but I think it sounds to me like there's some pretty cheap ways of doing this, and is it an issue of manufacturing? Is it not being mass produced enough so that it's affordable for people who've lost something to be able to buy it?
I think part of it is cultural and people buy-in. Sometimes people are not as accepting to new ideas. So maybe there has to be a point where people are going to say, oh, getting into a car and the car driving home by itself is a no-brainer. That's an everyday occurrence. We don't think about it. I think it's the same thing. Maybe as people become more familiar with artificial limbs, and we see a lot of the stuff. We see people running. We see people doing work. Right?
It's cool.
Yeah,
it's cool.
It's not something where you have to do a double take and say, "What is that?" We just accept it and say, "Hey, part of normal life. The guy had an accident, and he's going on with his life." So I think as that goes on, and as like you mentioned, as the manufacturing prices go down, the availability will become much greater, and we will probably see more and more people that are utilizing these tools. It's like a regular robot. Robot is a tool. It's the most sophisticated tool right now. I'm sure the pen you have in your hand 10 years ago, 15 years ago, was the most sophisticated pen tool.
True.
And
kind of like the iPhone 1.
There you go.
It's this big.
Yeah, or like the first fork somebody made hundreds of years ago,
right,
where that was the state-of-the-art technology. So these are all tools. And as we develop more and more tools and we have much more understanding of it, we have much more acceptance of it, you will see more and more, I think, in our life.
Well, but culturally, I think robots have always been, they've been around. I remember the Jetsons, they had the whole robots were doing the, remember the robot construction workers?
Yeah, there you go.
Hey buddy, pass me a hammer. Those kind of, they played into all the stereotypes. So, I think that culturally we've been primed for robots. It's just it's taken some time for that technology to actually catch up.
Yeah, I think it's one thing to see it on TV and see it in the comic books or read it in books, versus having direct contact with somebody or something that's a robot. It is a different story.
Yeah, I remember now. I think I saw this. I'm sure you saw this a few weeks ago. not in the paper, of course. Yeah, that was a different conversation. But that if you want to attend a trade show, instead of flying, across the country and sitting in a hotel and renting a car, blah blah blah, you could rent a robot. And just kind of drive around and talk to vendors.
Yeah, I think that is really not far away. I don't know if people know that majority of inventories in large factories that have huge inventories are done by robots, where the robots go back and forth and they just check to see if the serial numbers are there. Because of robots, we don't use as much inventory because now we can customize things and things can get made as soon as you put in a purchase request.
That's the 3D printers.
3D printers are one thing. 3D printers are great. They allow you to prototype things without even worrying about large costs. I don't need somebody to machine things and everything. So a lot of these robot hands and robot arms, I'm sure many of those parts can be created on a 3D printer, or what they used to call computer-aided design and computer-aided manufacturing, where we draw something on a computer that's attached just to something that's called a computer-aided manufacturing machine, and it has a piece of metal and just cuts it out to your thing and it comes out. So very similar. As the costs go down, you'll see more and more use by people that need prosthetics.
That is cool. So maybe in the future I'll be able to go to Kinko's and say, here, print out my homework and print out a prosthetic arm on your 3D printer.
Why not?
Why not? We'll talk a little bit more about that after the break. Stay tuned.
760 KGU.
Part of the Wall Street Business Network.
Avoid going into Waikiki if you can. HPD has closed Kalakaua between Lures and Royal Hawaiian Avenue because of a suspicious package that was found. It's very slow going west from town. The H1 slows at the airport exit on the viaduct.
Not only that, we have some
slows
stuff
right
at the
after
university
Middle
that's
Street.
directly related.
Complicating that is a stall on the H1 ever bound to the Waimalu Pearl City exit. In Aiea, accident to Moanalua Road by Aiea Elementary.
You're the one guy who would lead the charge on that.
I can do that.
Okay, so let's talk about how the technology, you're working on feeds into the robots, and then how the university can do that.
Sounds good. So that's actually not that hard. We have some stuff at the university that's very directly related to this.
Well, plus you're dealing with it every day, so I don't need to do a lot of research.
Oh no, everybody has to do research.
I think this is a hoax. I'm getting a hoax idea with the eye hand thing. That looks like a Photoshop deal.
That's not, but there is. This is a different one. This is a different. This is a different website. I actually saw it on something else.
This looks
it's very
fine.
similar. Yeah, it's very similar.
Engadget. Yeah, this looks right. There's a page. iLimb Bionic Hand. 2007. So.
That's probably just a computer rendition of what they're trying to do.
That's a great design, though.
But it's very similar. All throughout, everywhere in the world, they're doing stuff.
I remember this. This was on the news. This guy had like
Hawaii, the state of clean energy, is also brought to you by Hawaiian Electric Company, powering the growth and development of Hawaii since it was chartered by King Kalakaua in 1891. Today, Hawaiian Electric and its subsidiaries, Maui Electric and Hawaii Electric Light Company, serve more than 95% of our state, providing reliable electric service essential to our quality of life. The Hawaiian Electric companies are also leading our transition to clean energy by increasing our renewable energy use and improving energy efficiency. We're reducing Hawaii's dependence on imported oil and in providing a more sustainable and secure future for Hawaii. For more information, visit hawaiisenergyfuture.com.
Whoever is here.
Hawaii, the state of clean energy, is also brought to you by the State Energy Office of the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism. How can we secure a better future for Hawaii? One way is clean energy, and the State Energy Office is steering Hawaii to that clean energy future. Hawaii is rich with natural renewable resources, the sun, the wind, the ocean, and the land, and they are all being tapped to meet Hawaii's clean energy initiatives to generate electricity, create jobs, spur economic growth, and reduce our dependence on imported foreign oil. To learn more, visit energy.hawaii.gov.
We're back, we're live, and you're listening to Think Tech Friday. I'm your host, Attila Seress. With an announcement is our founder, Jay Fidel. Go ahead, Jay, take it away.
Thanks, Attila. Well, I just wanted to say we had a very good program yesterday. We talked about Hawaii's growing financial connection with Asia and how we can make it grow all the faster. We had Senator Kalani English there. We had Varian Allen as the moderator and half a dozen panelists who were all terrific. It's a great discussion. We liked it. We're going to do it again, probably in the fall. We're going to talk about Singapore, what we can learn from Singapore. Watch out for that program. Take a look at hvca.org or thinktechhawaii.com. Also, next month, May 23rd, we're going to do the 2013 update of housing in Hawaii, waking up to the American dream. Harry Saunders of Castle & Cook is going to be the moderator. We'll have, again, half a dozen panelists and some terrific keynotes. This is going to be May 23rd. The lunch starts at 11:30. The program starts at noon. It ends at 1:30 right on. And if you want to sign up for this, sign up early. Sign up at hvca.org. Thanks, Attila. Back to you.
Oh, thank you, Jay. I appreciate those announcements. It's good to hear that they're working on affordable housing, and
that's right.
Now the next one should be about traffic.
There you go.
Kind of tied together. Before we run out of time, I really wanted to give you a chance to talk about what the university is doing in terms of robotics and some of the programs that you're spearheading that maybe people don't know about.
Okay. The university, like all the other industries here, it's not as known as the things that are going on. The College of Engineering does a lot of work in conjunction with like the medical school and the business school. We're trying to bring in more and more kids to understand the entrepreneurial efforts about engineering. And that's actually very important because generally entrepreneurship brings out innovation. So some of the research that we're doing over at the thing, obviously, that deals with robotics is robot surgery. Okay, robotic surgery is very similar to the machines that they have at Queens, but we're trying to make it smaller. We're refining the teleoperations aspect, so we can have an expert doctor that does heart surgery sitting here in a lab in Honolulu, and the machine could be someplace in the Middle East at a battalion where they have a soldier that needs a surgery, and they would just do it by camera using computers and joysticks. So all this stuff being done, and you have the best person doing it, and he just happens to be like 10,000 miles away.
We're doing that with computer support today. You call up any QuickBooks support, it's done remotely from qualified people overseas.
Yeah, that's right. But you have to remember, these robot surgery, it's extremely precise motions because they're going into your body and they're trying to separate little capillaries and muscles and working on your things. So, but those are all possible. We have faculty working on small miniaturized vehicles or vessels, if you want to call it. My background is underwater robotics, and I would love to see if I can shrink my robot to. I was at that Great Adventure or something like that, where they shrank the submarine and shoved it into people as like
inner space
or something like that, right?
They put it in the body.
That's right, and then they go through, and of course, these miniaturized robots, maybe we can have them small enough that they can go swim around, chase down cancer cells, and get to the disease before it actually shows up. So, very interesting aspects. Other aspects, we have sensor work that's going on. All this control and all this stuff, dealing with robotics and engineering, it is one of the first and second steps in trying to work out all the kinks. The prosthetic part, we're trying to see if we can make artificial muscles by using special types of steel.
Now, how could, though, the average person get involved in this? Or how do you look for talent? Where does it come from?
Remember I mentioned something about the robotics tournament that's happening tomorrow? Similar to that, we have a great science and engineering fairs. We have great math competitions, physics competitions. I think they all start at the elementary, middle school, and obviously the high school. And we get the kids interested and create passion about these things. And by the time they get to college, they know, at least they have a method of figuring out where they're going. And they have the qualification to make sure that they can go into these fields. And once you do that, the sky's the limit. You get somebody interested in something, it's not about how much you're getting paid by the hour to work 80 hours a week. It's about, I need the answer, so I spend 80 hours a week doing it. And they're happy about the fact that they do it. So I think in a similar way, if we can get the students and the talent in the state up to understanding the technologies that are available here, and you can get a lot of the information you can get on the internet. So many companies, I think like some of the state or privately run high technology industry information websites, or the College of Engineering Manoa website. They have information in there where you can tap in and see if you can answer the questions you have. Obviously, if you are a student and you have a very great interest, you can go to our website at www.eng.hawaii.edu, our engineering website.
Engineering, okay.
Yeah, and you can ask questions, you can look for stuff, or you can even request visits, where we may be able to set up some lab visits for you. We do a lot of this stuff for the schools.
So you're looking for new talent at all times?
Oh, we're looking to do outreach.
Outreach.
Talent can only arise if they understand what they're interested in. And it's all about exposure.
Oh, so you expose them to
That's
it,
right.
And then they say, wow, I really like this.
That's
I'd
right.
like to spend more time doing
That's right. It's the same thing with all these robot tournaments. It's all about exposing kids into new interests. And maybe one of them will be that passion that they need to have, and they'll go dig into finding the solutions for cancer, or how to completely cure Alzheimer's disease, create that automatically driven car that we always talk about and see in the Jetsons,
Well, and that's the thing is, in the future, maybe the automatic driving car will be the exception. Or, I'm sorry, will be the rule rather than the exception, and the human driver, who's not as accurate, will have a higher insurance premium because they're not as good as drivers.
Yeah. Wasn't there something in the newspaper about a month ago about a Google car that drives automatically,
the big
that can be registered, and all that stuff? So yeah, we're going that way, and everybody understands.
And your department is doing that outreach to bring in that talent, to get them interested inside robotics.
Yeah, we do a lot of K through 12 outreach.
K through 12 outreach. And, if you wanted to leave, our listeners with one key idea, your view as to what you'd like to see happen in Hawaii in 60 seconds or less, what would it be?
I would say two things. Number one, there was a little quote from Albert Einstein, and he used to always say that daydreaming is the window of the future. Because you got to daydream so you can make something for the future, right? And the other thing is, we have a lot of talent out here. We need to constantly support and nurture that talent so that some of these kids that grow up to be our leaders in the future can understand what's possible and probable in the state.
Well, and that's the thing, and you're leading the charge. Well, thank you so much for being on our show, Song. It's been a real pleasure.
My pleasure.
And, for those of you listening, if you missed any part of this program, be sure to visit our website to download the podcast. The website is thinktechhawaii.com. And if you do like our program, go ahead and like us on Facebook and, follow us on Twitter. We also have our website. We're always updating it. So thank you to our chief engineer, Jack Waters. Our account manager is Patrick Leonard. Board operator is Leo Rodriguez. And Jay Fidel, his passion, he's the founder of Think Tech.
Right.
And he makes it all possible. And Jay, thank you for keeping an eye on me and making sure I'm on track. Remember to appreciate life, do good to others, and have a great weekend.
Yeah, aloha.
Aloha.